My friends, if you're here expecting the narrative spoon-fed by the mainstream media or that superficial analysis that tries to paint a picture of diplomatic normality, this video is definitely not for you. Here we operate with mental armor, and today that armor is aimed at the biggest choreographed farce in the recent history of our foreign policy. What the world witnessed today in Washington was not a meeting between two heads of state. It was a brutal exercise in damage control on one side and the imposition of sovereignty on the other. Donald Trump did not receive an ally nor even a worthy adversary. He received a defendant in the court of global geopolitics. And Lula's behavior from the very first second on American soil revealed what he tried to hide with all his strength, a visceral fear of real confrontation. Many are focused on the show of rhetoric that happened afterward, later there at the Brazilian embassy. But true intelligence lies in the gaps. It's in what wasn't filmed. It's in the deafening silence that dominated the Oval Office. Why did the man who loves the spotlight, who calls himself the global statesman, beg for the international press not to enter the room? That's the question that won't go away. Why did the leader who claims to talk tough to imperialism choose absolute isolation in front of the cameras at the White House? Today I'm going to show you that Lula's sovereignty ended at the White House entrance. Let's analyze the raw facts with the cold technical detachment that the system hates. There is a strict protocol at the White House for state visits. The standard is what's called a press pool. The leaders sit down, exchange formal words, answer 2 or 3 quick questions, and then move on to private discussions. But Lula carried out what we call a self-defense through homicide maneuver. He used the tactic of intentional delay. By leaving the embassy later than scheduled, he created the perfect pretext to skip the public part. This was not a scheduling or traffic mistake in Washington. It was a desperate maneuver to avoid the contrast. Lula knew that the international press, which unlike ours is not kept in line by advertising money, would ask lethal questions. Questions that he can't answer without destroying his own narrative back home. Imagine the scenario: a journalist from the Daily Wire or Fox News asking President Lula, "How do you explain having called the man sitting next to you a Nazi and a fascist just a few months ago?" Or, "How do you justify the court-driven persecution of your main opponent in Brazil while calling for democracy here?" Lula wouldn't be able to handle the weight of those questions next to Trump. Trump projects strength, clarity, and an attitude of someone who doesn't owe explanations to the system. Lula next to him looked and seemed like a dated relic of a rhetoric the world has already moved past. He preferred the darkness of the Oval Office because in the dark, he doesn't have to keep up the facade. But Trump, the negotiator who came from the iron and steel market, didn't give a free pass to this cowardice. Now look beneath the surface of this trip. Lula didn't go to the United States to talk about world hunger, about Cuba, or to defend our rare earths, our sovereignty. That's just the fake stake he throws to the activists to distract them. The mission was technical, specific, and driven by the panic of the financial system that supports him. There were 2 main objectives in Lula's secret folder on this trip. First, shielding JBS, which is under a coordinated attack from the United States Department of Justice. There is a heavy investigation into cartel formation, anti-competitive policies, and price manipulation that could cost billions of dollars. And more importantly, the revocation of the company's operating license on American soil. Josely Batista, the man who admitted to paying millions in bribes to Dilma and Lula, was the one who forced this trip, according to behind-the-scenes sources. Lula went there as an errand boy for the financial elite. He needed to try to make a political deal for an issue that, in the United States, is legal and technical. He went to try to save the cash flow that fuels his system. And the second reason, the ghost of narco-terrorism, the FTO. This is the point that keeps the Planalto Palace up at night. Trump has a plan on the table to classify criminal organizations as foreign terrorist organizations. You know that. And if that gets signed, the United States will gain full legal freedom to track global financial flows, freeze the assets of anyone who has suspicious conversations, and carry out intelligence operations without asking Brasilia for permission. For a government that keeps its borders uncontrolled and has an ambiguous relationship with public security, that would be game over. Lula went there to beg Trump not to sign this death sentence for the system. He went to ask for mercy for organized crime that today dominates entire territories in Brazil. And judging by the defeated look he had when he left, maybe, just maybe, he was told no. Why do we say maybe? Because Lula actually has leverage. Brazil's rare earths. Suddenly there's another side to the Trump administration, a more pragmatic side, and that side just wants to take care of America first, and that needs weapons to defend its sovereignty. Maybe that side could have accepted a deal. But Lula's priceless expression already says a lot up to this point. Now watch the footage. At the entrance, Lula reaches out his hand to Trump to greet him like an old friend, but Trump even steps back. But on the way out, these say a lot. There are no smiles, no thumbs up, which Lula always uses to fake success. What we saw was a man aged by the weight of reality, with a lost look being escorted out, while Trump, with a formal and cold statement, closed the matter. Trump issued a statement saying the meeting was dynamic. In Trump's intelligence vocabulary, dynamic is a code for someone who moves a lot to try to escape, someone who is unpredictable and needs to be closely monitored. He didn't call him efficient. He called him a character who tries to play on both sides. And then came the final blow of the note, especially the tariffs. Is that a loaded weapon? It's Trump saying, I know what you came to ask on behalf of your business friends, and my answer is economic pressure. The contrast was almost ridiculous when Lula arrived at the Brazilian embassy. There, surrounded by his sycophantic ministers and his loyal supporters, he tried to sound tougher. He said he stood up to Trump, that he talked about Cuba, that he told Trump not to invade anyone, that he gave a moral lesson about Brazil's riches. But my friends, is that embassy bravado? Lula's face showed that he had just eaten something he didn't like. Because if he had said even 10% of that inside the Oval Office, he would have left there in a joint press conference to reaffirm his sovereignty before the world. But he stayed quiet in the palace and shouted at the embassy. That has a name: diplomatic cowardice. He avoided going on the record before the world press so he could lie to the Brazilian public on safe ground with Globo's support. So, my friends, stay alert. It was only the first day. We still don't know the details that will be leaked in the next 24 to 48 hours. Leaks controlled by the American government itself and by infiltrators in Lula's own commission. So, let's wait. But what we have for today was this: a cold meeting with Lula visibly embarrassed. See you next time. Bye-bye.
A cara de quem comeu algo que não fez bem para o estômago. Então, fiquem atentos. E para acompanhar aquilo que é censurado, que nós não podemos falar aqui, eu quero te convidar para o nosso bunker de inteligência. QR Code na tela, link na descrição e no primeiro comentário fixado. Lá o nosso território é soberano, ninguém na canetada pode nos tirar do ar. O que aqui nós não podemos dizer porque estamos em terreno alugado. Então, meus amigos, blindem as suas mentes. And I created a series and movie channel with our team to bring you the best of cinema without woke culture, without whining, with a selection for you to enjoy with your family. And now I'm recommending a series called Falda. It's an Israeli series, right? With Israel's secret services Mossad, among others, infiltrating Islamist radical circles. It's amazing because it coincides exactly with the period we're living in now, with the war in the Middle East. So it's here on the card, in the related video, in the description. Click and check out our series and movies channel with exceptional tips, because we put it in context with what's happening in the world right now. So go there. I'm Shimon Oliveira. See you in the next video.